Hello, everyone, and welcome to another book-based interview where today we talk to author James Foley. James is the creator of the Lisa Owens thriller series and is known for his compelling character-driven narratives. If you're interested in following James' journey throughout this interview, please check out his website at james-foley.com or his Facebook/Instagram at JAMESFOLEY author. And as always, if you enjoy these book-based interviews, please drop a like and subscribe. But James, thank you so much for being here.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So this is usually the first question I love asking people, but we read your bio on your website and it talks about you being involved in the business world prior to you being an author. And I love asking this, but why the switch?
Why the switch? Well, I had always wanted to be a writer, but as you know, life is in the way and you have to pay the bills and do all those things. And for the better part of my career, I was a business executive. I worked probably, I don't know, 10 to 12 hours every day. So at the end of the day or at the end of the weekend, I was exhausted. It's not the best situation for a writer. So when that chapter came to an end, I first headed off to South Florida. I ditched the suit and headed to the beach, just like the dream. And I went there because I always wanted to work with sick and injured sea turtles, and I had an opportunity to do that at a sea turtle hospital. And actually, that experience and being out on the beaches in Florida in the middle of the night, and I can explain why if you're interested, but that led to the inspiration for my first book, Treasure Coast, and that's how it happened.
Wow.
Wow, yeah, that's super cool. And I was gonna ask a follow-up question about that, about your first novel, Treasure Coast, but if you could explain more about the sea turtles too, that would be great.
Yeah,
Them.
sure. So sea turtles, like teenagers, only turn up in the dark. And the area of Florida where I was is a very important nesting area for those animals. And so my work carried me out onto the beaches in the middle of the night during nesting season. So imagine you're out on this gorgeous beach, millions of stars, the moon shining on the water. In the distance, you see little cruise ships going by. They look like little diamonds on the water. Sounds gorgeous, right? It's
Yeah.
also crazy frightening because it's South Florida and anything can happen on those beaches. And one night, packages of cocaine floated up on the beach, and that was it. That was the idea. So that's how it happened.
Oh my
Wow,
God.
Yeah.
that is crazy. Those sea turtles were having a party last night, it looks like,
Yeah.
when they're turning up at
I,
night.
and now, Nathan, I know you like a good mystery, so I know you're going to read this book.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I after interviewing Carl last week, like it's really interesting to hear, some of the stories that inspire writing thriller novels. And I
Yes.
love how
Yeah.
your thriller starts off with you caring about sea turtles. I'm personally a panda person. I've always loved
Uh,
watching like those videos of panda caretakers like working
uh,
with pandas and they fall off a tree or they roll down a hill or something. So, if packages of cocaine ever turn up at that zoo, I guess I'm gonna be an author as well if I have to do that.
yeah.
Um,
Well, the thing with sea turtles that just gets me is when they're born, there's all these eggs, and these little hatchlings have to crawl their way from those eggs into the water, which is dangerous enough. There's all kinds of predators that are looking to eat them. But if they make it in the water, only 1 in 1,000 will actually live to adulthood. And here's where it gets crazy interesting. So the ones that will survive, they're out there in the water for like 3 to 5 years, and then the females will come back to that very beach by some kind of magic almost to reproduce. To me, that's really cool and really special. And what we as humans do to these animals, not purposefully maybe, but with plastic pollution and boat strikes and water pollution, it's just horrible. And so I wanted to be a part of that. So I did that for 7 years.
Wow, that is such a like important calling to have, and that you're able to follow that calling and it led into your writing is so special. Like, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, sure, sure. So executive experience wasn't exactly applicable to that to that work, but it really was fulfilling a lifelong dream. So I feel very, very lucky that I got to do that. Now as as you know, I live here in San Diego, so no more sea turtles.
So how has your writing process changed now that you've moved from Florida to San Diego? You're not as involved, I'm guessing, with the sea turtles anymore. How
No.
do you stay inspired? How does your writing process look nowadays?
Well, I've gone all in on writing. I'm working it like a business, and it's literally all I do. But moving to California was just transformative for me. The creative community, the writing community that I found out here is just amazing. And I didn't have that in where I was living. I was living on a barrier island. You know, there wasn't much there. But out here, it's just a different world. So I've connected with just tons of creative people, and it's just been incredibly inspiring and also really, really helpful in furthering my journey. I know we'll talk about this in a little bit, but that whole movie deal thing that would not have happened if I was, you know, still in Florida. So
Yeah, as a California native, I it's very hard for me to picture living somewhere else. So I
yes,
totally get the love for California. I'm
it's
in the same boat
so
as you.
it's so beautiful out here. I'm so glad we followed our kids is why we're
Okay.
here. But the one downer is the ocean is freezing.
Oh,
It is.
And
100%.
I'm a big ocean guy and I just can't
Yeah.
make myself do it. So,
Mhm.
but the sunsets are pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And going a little bit deeper into that. So, your inspiration for your standalone novel, An American Boyfriend,
Yeah.
where did that come from? Is that based in your love for California? Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, you know, sometimes ideas for books just fall into your lap.
Mhm.
And that's what happened with American Boyfriend. I knew I wanted to write a book in the first person. I usually don't do that. I usually write third person close.
Mhm.
And I wanted to try that. And so, anyway, there was this person I knew, a woman who's was complaining one year that her son wasn't going to be at home for Thanksgiving because he was going with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's family to their beach house in Mexico. They were Mexican, and she was just whining and going on about this. And you know, I have two sons, and I'm like totally over things like that. And so I was like listening dutifully. But she went on and on about, you know, oh, the father in this family is very conservative and all this kind of stuff. And also, and at some point I couldn't even listen to her anymore because all I could think about is what a great book this could be. And so probably 10 minutes later, I had that whole plot figured out in my head and I was so excited to write it. And it came and it came out great. So inspiration comes from everywhere.
No, I will be careful with the stories that I share with you then.
You should.
Otherwise,
You
I'm gonna
should.
be in the next
Yeah. Yeah.
thriller.
Yeah. I mean, Nathan's looking kind of like a villain that I could put in my next book. So I don't know.
That would be crazy. That'd be awesome. You know, if that ever becomes a television adaptation, I want to cast my own character. I'll be like, all right, let's see if you guys
Yeah.
have the charisma to really pull off this role.
Yeah.
I'm actually really curious because I know that, you know, we mentioned this before, you're writing the Lisa Owen series, which has a recurring character and a recurring universe. Did
Right.
that, when you were writing your standalone novel, did it kind of give you like a breath of fresh air where you're like, okay, I can work on something different and I don't really have to worry about the Lisa Owens world right now? Or was it kind of like a challenge to kind of balance both of them, I guess, where you now have two different ideas in your head that you're thinking about? And I don't know, like, what was that like?
Yeah, that's a really great question and one I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about. But at the time the idea for An American Boyfriend came to me, I was working on the second book in the Lisa Owens series.
Mm.
It's called Blue Ridge. And when I had the idea for American Boyfriend, I just couldn't wait to start it. So I finished Blue Ridge and got that off to the publisher. And then I went right to work on American Boyfriend. And that book almost wrote itself. I mean, it wrote really, really fast. And I am not a fast writer, it takes me a long time. But it was kind of a breath of fresh air. And then the flip side is, so when I went back after American Boyfriend to start writing the third Lisa Owens book, Catalina, I thought, oh, am I going to be bored? Am I, how am I going to do this? And you know what? It just has been great. It's just been great. So I'm in love with those characters. I think I always will be. My plan is to stop with the 3 books in that series, but if readers end up wanting more, well, then I'm leaving the door open. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's awesome. The reason I ask is because I feel like I'm very much a single task person where if I need to do something, I need to focus on that only. I can't read multiple books. I need to read the book, finish it, move on to the next one. So I could only imagine if that's me with reading. I thought it would be really interesting to ask how it was with your writing, because if you have this world with Lisa Owens, that you're really focusing on, and it's a universe, you have to expand on it, add more characters, more locations, and then at the same time you get this crazy inspiration for a standalone novel. I think it'd be really confusing to see how do you really juggle those ideas. Do you want to put your series on the back burner for a second, or does the standalone have to wait? So it was really cool how you were able to find that pocket of time after Blue Ridge where you're able to just focus on that standalone, and then it allowed you to gain more inspiration when you came back with Catalina for the third book.
Right. I'll let you in on a dirty little secret. Publishing is really slow. So I knew that. So when I sent Blue Ridge off, I knew it'd be a long time and that I had time to work on American Boyfriend. And American Boyfriend was kind of an experiment for me. I told you I was writing it in a different way than I ever had before, with in first person, with unreliable narrators, very different than what I usually write. And I wasn't even sure I could pull it off, but it just came together so well. I'm so excited for readers to get to see it.
That's great.
So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Another question I also wanted to ask, and it just came to me, but why thrillers? Is that a genre that you really enjoy consuming as a reader, or is that something that you just naturally think about when you're going out and you're like, oh, this would be a really cool mystery? Like, why thrillers for you?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good question, but the answer is exactly what you said. I've been a lifelong reader, and I'm a big fan of the genre. And so I knew when was going to write a book, it would be a thriller because I know how those books work. This past year, I was asked to be a debut author at Thriller Fest, which is this big conference that happens in New York with the organization International Thriller Writers, which I've always wanted to be a member of, and I finally am.
Oh,
So I
awesome.
went to this big conference, and they make a big deal out of you when it's your first book, your first year. And every author that I love was there. And it was so cool. It was like being in this club, and those people, those authors were just as nice as you would hope them to be. And so I had this great experience. It was like being home. I felt like I had come home. And this is my genre. This is what I'm good at. I don't know if I could write a different kind of book. Maybe one day I will, but I'm pretty comfortable in this genre. I like it.
Wow, that's awesome. I've actually never heard of Thriller Fest. If you don't mind
Oh,
me.
you guys should go. You should go.
Oh, we can
It's so
attend?
cool.
It's not just for
Yeah.
authors? Like regular people can also just go?
Yeah, regular people. Authors are regular people.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I just meant like No, I just meant like cuz you guys are doing the panels and you guys are like the guests of honor and stuff. So I'd figured like it'd be like a networking thing instead of it kind of sounds like it's a convention almost where anybody can
It's almost like a convention, but it's a convention for readers and writers who love that genre. And it's just incredibly interesting and really fun and very inspiring, at least very inspiring for me. And the connections I made and the people I got to meet and the people I call my friends now, very cool.
Oh, that is
That's
awesome.
cool.
Congratulations on just being able
Thanks.
to finally be a part of that, that Thriller Fest community. And I know you mentioned that you also found a group locally that you've been working with in the California area,
Yes.
right? That's awesome.
Yeah. 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 There's a national organization called Sisters in Crime. It was initially organized to help further women writers in the genre. Now it's open to everybody. And here in San Diego, our local chapter is called Partners in Crime, and I'll be the president of that next year.
Wow.
Um, and it's just a great little group, and everybody is very kind and very helpful and supportive of each other.
That is awesome. Congratulations again on being the
Yeah.
leader of that charter organization. That's really cool. If you don't mind me asking, I feel like this would be a great segue to our next question. But you're a part of Thriller Fest. You're a part of this Partners in Crime local chapter of the organization for sisters. Is it Sisters in Crime?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
yes,
Don't remember.
Sisters in Crime.
Awesome. And I just feel like you've met so many other writers, you've met so many other people that are just invested in literature. So I just have to ask, what is your advice to new writers out there that want to release their own book?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I still think of myself as a new writer, so I'm not sure I'm the one who should be handing out advice to anybody. But I will say this: I think it's like a business, so you guys can relate to this with what you're doing. You really have to know what you're writing, why you're doing it, how much you're willing to invest in it in terms of time and resources and energy, and what your goals are. Because I feel like if you have answers to those questions going into writing, going into anything in any kind of enterprise, you're going to have a much better chance of hitting your goals, of achieving your objectives. And so that's a little bit unusual. I'm sure a lot of people have, all kinds of things to say to new writers, but to me, I approach writing like a business. I'm a business guy, and that's what I would say is like really do some, some self, you know, reflection, some introspection, and answer those kinds of questions to yourself, and those will be your guide, your guiding stars.
Yeah. It sounds like when you know where you're coming from, it's easier to plan out where you want to go.
Right,
That's, yeah.
right. If you don't know, like I'll give you an example. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I really want to write," and they make up some idea that they want to write about. And I'll pick memoir, for example. People always want to write their own life story, which I always find super interesting. But the fact of the matter is, if okay, that's great, write your own story, but if you're not famous or you have something extraordinary hasn't happened to you, you're not going to be able to sell that book to a publisher. And it's likely it's not going to be very widely read. So as long as you know that going in, still write the story, but don't be frustrated later on when you can't sell the book or you can't find an agent or whatever it is. So that's just like an easy example of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. I get where you're coming from. And
Yeah.
that kind of leads me into our next question, which is what's in the future for you? I know you had quickly mentioned something about a television adaptation.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
anything that you can share around that or any future books that you can share with our subscribers over here at BookBase?
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, the book that's out that subscribers can get a hold of is Treasure Coast. I happen to have one. That's what it
Ooh.
looks like. And that one you can buy, almost anywhere. And if you're in San Diego, you can buy it at the airport, which is really fun.
That's
Oh, how
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, every time I go to take a flight, I look for it. But 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 beyond Treasure Coast, Blue Ridge, which is the second book in the Lisa Owen series, will come out next year. I think it's September is the release date. So I told you it's like really slow with publishers. And then I think it's just like 4 or 5 months after that, so maybe early 27, is the final book, Catalina. And I'm still putting finishing touches on Catalina. American Boyfriend will be coming out, but there's not a date yet that's scheduled. So I hope it's soon. It's a book, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really excited about. So there's those things. The adaptation for television is in the works, and let me tell you what an experience that is. So I think it's every author's dream to have their book adapted for television or the big screen or whatever. And mine too. I try to write things that are very cinematic and would lend themselves to that. So I was really surprised to hear that I got lucky with my first book. It was just luck and having the book in the right hands at the right time. And it is very cool to work with a screenwriter on your own work. It is cool. The thing about it, though, is it's a very long road to production, and it's out of my hands. There's nothing for me to do now but to stand back and wait, knowing that almost anything can derail a project. And so I try not to think about it too much. And I just go back to work and continue writing, because that's what I can have control over. And the rest is the rest. But yes, it's exciting. It's I guess the word I would use is very validating, right? That somebody thinks enough of it. So we'll see.
That is
awesome.
so cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. I was also going to ask, what is it like talking to a screenwriter, like as an author? Like, is it one of those things where you're trying to communicate, like, because I'm sure the screenwriter has their own little image of how the story's supposed to go, but you're the authentic writer, like you know exactly what's happening in the story. So what is it like communicating your vision to somebody? Was it kind of frustrating or maybe a little challenging to be like, I have to get this idea across, or was it just just open collaboration and I was like, oh wow, like I'm able to just share a bunch of ideas and people can hear me and stuff? Like, what was that like?
It's a little bit like a dance. On the screenwriter side of it, they're trying not to offend the author, I think. So they want to pitch their ideas and share their ideas, but they don't want to get you upset to the point where you're like, no. And from the author side, you're listening to some of those ideas and maybe you don't really like them, but you don't want to throw up anything that is a deal breaker, that causes a problem. You don't want to be the obstacle to getting the project to move ahead. So it's a little bit like a dance, and it's funny. I mean, I find for myself, but I think that I'm like this with everything. She'll say something to me that she's thinking of. And I might really hate that idea. And so I don't say too much. And then I think about it a little bit and try to like see, okay, here's where she's going. She had these ideas for retitling the whole thing, which is like horrifying, right? Oh my God. But I kind of understand what she's going after. So who knows? It's all new to me. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that helpful? Is that
Oh,
a good answer?
absolutely. No,
Okay.
I loved that metaphor of you saying that it's a dance, because I think that's such a unique experience where, you have two people, one of them is trying to communicate different ideas and the other one is trying to understand those ideas and kind of see where they're going. And I also understand like the television world or like just media like that is so much more different than, like writing a novel and the writing world.
Right.
So communicating those differences, I'm sure it can be a little bit weird at moments, which is why I think that was just such a great answer, because I think it is a little bit of an ebb and flow where you kind of understand where they're coming from, but you also want to stand your ground on the core elements of your story that you believe should, be consistent with all forms of adaptations.
Yeah.
So
it's funny too what resonates with Hollywood versus as writing the book. Like in Treasure Coast, there's a scene involving alligators. Of course there would be, right? It's set in Florida. But I threw that scene in at the last minute, just like another thing, right, to put in, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know, is it over the top or whatever?" That was like one of the first things out of their mouths is that they love that. And I was like, really? That's what you like? So you just never know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, that's awesome. I can't wait to read that scene in the book as well. That'll be really cool.
Yeah.
We're also we're kind of approaching our last question, and I think
Uh-huh.
you gave a lot of context as to the journey of being a writer and how important community is. But one thing as BookBase that we love to create on our platform is a community of readers that are able to not only learn from each other on like new book recommendations, but to overall connect with other people, just to feel like, hey, like I have people around me that are also interested in what I'm reading, and we can possibly create a book club or we can just talk about literature. And I wanted to ask if you've ever been a part of a book club, or if you were ever a part of a circle where you guys were like reading the same book together, or like, yeah, what is your experience with like socializing around books?
Yeah. Um, well, my own experience, believe it or not, was in the business world.
Hmm.
We read a lot of books in business for a number of different reasons. Some of it is for learning, and or a lot of it, I guess, is for learning, but a lot of it is for culture too. Finding a way for teams to come together and behave. According to, say, a culture norm or whatever. So, I have that experience behind me. But beyond that, book clubs, I talked to a number of book clubs as an author, and my wife has been in a book club forever. So I sort of vicariously, like, what are you reading? Well, what did they say about that? That kind of thing. So I have not been a member of a book club myself. But I will say this: I think they serve a very important role in society. If you think about it, ever since the cavemen, people have connected through stories. It's part of our DNA as humans. And in today's day and age, where people are isolated, there's digital interruption, we're polarized politically, all those things. What I see as an author is people are still looking for that connection, whether it be in a book club or whether it be in a fan community or coming to an author signing. There is tremendous interest in that and in sharing that connection. So I think it's something, looking for those connections is something in our human nature. It's something that we've always done, and I think it's something we'll always do.
That was such a great answer. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
you
for
said that
sharing that.
so well.
Yeah.
Good,
No,
good.
absolutely. I think there's something beautiful about the fact that if you were to go to a library right now, you can see so many books that have
Hmm.
been written across history by so many people, regardless if you know their name or not. There's just so much knowledge out there that are just in books. And one thing that I really love about the biography genre is that you can read one book and you can learn about an entire person's life like cycle, like their whole like events that happen in their lifetime and everything. And I think that's just a small metaphor to expand on just how much you can benefit from just reading with other people about different things and just learning together.
I agree. Something I think authors have a responsibility as well, to write more than just an entertaining story. But I'll just talk about my own genre. It's fun to read a thriller and murder and mayhem and all that, but I always think there needs to be uh, something underneath that, a point of emotional resonance that people can connect with, or lessons that could be learned, if they're effectively woven into the story. People read thrillers for entertainment, so they have to be entertaining, but that doesn't mean that's where they stop. And that's what I really like about writing character driven thrillers. There's a lot of opportunity there, to build in those messages. So in all my books, whatever it is, I promise you, you're always going to find that. You're always going to find that underlying theme, that underlying message, that thing, that human point of connection. And I think these days, it's inherent on authors to deliver on that. That's the thing that's going to make somebody fall in love with a book and remember that book. So it's not always easy to achieve, but it should always be there, I think.
That was also a great response. Thank you so much. And I think it's great that you do have that direction. And I think it'll only serve as a great, motivating compass to carry as you read and just write other novels and stuff. And I just
Yeah.
want to thank you again for being a part of this interview. Thank you so much for just sharing your journey and just being so open about, the frustrations, but also the beauty of just being an author and being able to, garner that opportunity to like share what you love. That's really great. And I'm really happy for you, James. That's great.
Well, this was great fun. So thank you so much for inviting me. It was really,
Thank
really fun.
you.
Of course, of
We
course.
loved having you.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, for those that are watching, please, if you are interested in James's novels and you want to know how you can get a copy, please check out his website, james-foley.com, or just go to the San Diego airport. And you can also check out his Facebook and Instagram at James Foley Author. But again, James, thank you so much for being here. And yeah.